That's why you should check your air filter after the winter or storage. Nice little mouse nest in there.
So bang for your buck, this DL650 is actually good value. It's a nice budget bike. It's got, you know, reasonable handling, reasonable brakes. One of the best things about this bike is the ergonomics of it lends itself well to long distance touring, with the exception of a chain drive, which is a bit of a drawback in my opinion. I like the shaft drive, but the overall, you know, the ergonomics, the sit upright position where you sit on this, it's a very neutral position. Like your back is sitting straight up, and although, you know, you might have to adjust the bars to accommodate because everybody's different, you know, adjust the levers, adjust the foot pegs down here. Unfortunately, with modern motorcycles, the commonplace thing is that the ergonomics or comfort of the motorcycle is often overshadowed by the aesthetics value, you know, like the sex appeal and the marketing, and so people who want a budget motorcycle in North America are pretty limited by the choices, and the DL650 certainly fits that bill, and hence its popularity with many riders. It's got good wind protection. It's got a nice fairing on it, so it keeps a lot of the wind off you. The ergonomics is very neutral. What else can you say about it? I mean, it's got the reliable V-twin that they've been making for a long time now. It's been back in, I forget when the first year this thing was. They've went through a few iterations of the DL650, but they've retained basically the same motorcycle and changed the look of it. If you're thinking about buying one of these, they're a great value for your money. It's a V-twin. First appeared in the old SV650. It was called in North America anyway, and it was a V-twin sit upright bike. You know, budget learner's bike. That same V-twin, Hyosung borrowed the motor or made the motor. I'm not too sure who started what first, but definitely a Suzuki design. And then Hyosung had it for a while. They put it in a little bike called an Aquila. The motor was okay, but the peripheral stuff around the bike, all the switchgear and everything, was a little substandard for sure. So all these Suzuki V Stroms sport fuel injected 32-bit ECU controlled digital engine management systems, pretty typical on modern motorcycles. There was no carburetors. The old SV650 did have carburetors out 99, 2001, something like that. The sport's also a 19-inch front wheel and a 17 rear, which is pretty cool. It has a nice travel on the suspension, so curb hopping is definitely doable, although you should buy a skid plate for this thing because the bottom of the engine is awfully exposed. What else to say about it? It's just a good all-around motorcycle. It's a little, depending on who you talk to, it's a little on the ugly side perhaps, or some people may not agree with that, but it's a bit bizarre looking. It's classed as a dirt bike actually, oddly enough, although it doesn't really lend itself well to being in the dirt. I mean, compared to, say, a full-on street bike, yeah, there is some advantages like the ground clearance and this sort of thing, but overall it doesn't make a great dirt bike for really dirt biking. Maybe you could do the Copper Canyon, Mexico, I'm not sure. So most people buy these because they're a budget bike, but there is quite a cult following of people who like to travel around the world. Police forces around the world have adopted this model because it's budget, of course, and its versatility, and it's just a good all-around motorcycle. This bike I'm just taking on a test drive. I've done the servicing on it, coolant oil, fork seals, some brake pads, minor stuff really. These bikes usually just take consumables. There's nothing really on them that is too elaborate or fancy. They're not bristling with electronics. They do have a fuel pump on them that tends to clog up on the filter. Fuel pumps do go. They're available cheaply on eBay most of the time. So, and because I think they're copied in China, so you'll find a lot of the parts for the motor here and there, including fuel pumps. This is a twin brake setup on the front. It's got preload on the suspension, but very basic suspension. Preload on the rear, on the spring, very basic. People like these for traveling around, you know, going down to Mexico and whatnot. They're really good bikes, comfortable, but budget. You know, it's not a fancy bike, so you're not going to you know, start comparing it to a BMW or something like that. However, this will definitely have the longevity over a newer BMW, in my opinion, because the quality is better. Japanese engineer. It doesn't have a hydraulically actuated clutch, which is nice. Still retains the old cable. There's throttle cables on this thing. A lot of, as we go into the future, more and more bikes are doing silly things like ride-by-wire technology, which is, it makes some sense on high-end models like a 260 horsepower, you know, Ducati V4 or whatever you got. Then the fly-by-wire thing makes sense, but on a bike like this, not so much. This thing has panniers on it. It has a trunk. You know, you can buy GV, Tour Tech, all kinds of extras for the DL650. And this one's got crash bars, which is highly recommended. Buy some crash bars. There's some highway pegs on this thing, and a skid plate. The crash bars and skid plate are a great upgrade. You can get taller windshields, of course, and the handguards are kind of nice because your hands are out in the wind beyond the windshield. So on cold weather riding, it really rears its ugly head if you don't have these on. Great for keeping the wind off the fingies in the cold weather. Single disc on the rear, of course, typical. Dual caliper on the front, telescoping forks, standard. It's got a preload up on the forks here. Each one has a preload. It's got one adjustable knob back here for the preload on the spring. Center stand, very nice. The aftermarket skid plate is a good idea if you're going so-called off-road. This, for some reason, is considered a dirt bike. I'm not too sure why. It's got the dual headlights up front, which is very nice. Chain drive, unfortunately, it'd be really cool if it was a shaft, but it's a chain. 650. They also make a 1000cc version of this thing. Stock exhaust, very quiet. Start it up. There we go. It's got ABS on it. Big comfortable seat. Quiet exhaust. Nice throaty sound though. They do make 1000cc, like I said, but I think the 650, in my opinion, is a better bike. Really easy to do maintenance on. The only really drawback is the air filter is buried underneath all this plastic, and they got a lot of goofy puzzle piece plastics on the front. So if you want to do any maintenance on the air filter, it gets to be a bit of a drag really quick. And the fuel pump is in the tank, of course, because it's fuel injected bike, and therefore the fuel filter is also in the tank. So if you want to change the fuel filter, you got to remove all the plastics, pull the tank off, pull out the fuel pump to get at the fuel filter, and they do clog up, by the way. And you'll notice a lag in power diminishing over the miles, and so it is a thing until the point where, of course, it won't barely run or get over 40k an hour. So anyways, yeah, that's my little review on the DL650. Hope that helps. It's a very popular bike. People out there seem to like it, and so if you're thinking of buying one, thumbs up. They're often, throughout all the reviews, magazine articles, they're always voted the top 10 best budget bikes to buy under $10,000. They did have a 1000cc version of this, like I said, the DL1000, but the 650 is much more popular, and you don't really need the 1000 for street riding. The 650s have gotten so performance orientated with high comp pistons and fuel injection that the passing power is certainly there if you need it with the DL650. So less weight, better fuel mileage, and less bulk to drag around. They also made a DL250, by the way, in other markets beyond North America. They never brought it to North America. The DL250, I know nothing about. My apologies. Never seen them, never ridden one, but I have ridden a lot of these DL650s and the DL1000s. Oddly enough, the DL1000, the engine was derived from the TL1000, which was a tremendous motorcycle. in terms of performance. So they took that engine and transplanted it into this sort of motorcycle, this budget motorcycle, which was a very good move by Suzuki because they have sold tons of them. Anyways, happy trails. Take care out there. Stay safe, and I'll do another review on something else, whatever comes in. Do a little chit chat on it. Talk to you soon. Bye bye. That's too much. That's too much.